Chosen One, this message has reached you not by chance, but by divine orchestration. There are no accidents in the spirit, only sacred alignments that draw you to this moment. You've felt the stirrings in your heart, the ancient ache that whispers of wounds long buried and prayers never fully answered. You've wondered if your sensitivity was too much, if your solitude was a sign of failure, if the weight you carry is a cross no one else can bear. You are not alone in this journey. Countless souls have stood where you stand now, bracing against the wind of generational pain and longing for a breakthrough. Tonight, hidden truths will come to light. Truths that affirm you were sent for a higher cause, equipped by heaven to confront curses and build legacies. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Listen closely, for the words ahead will challenge everything you thought about your past and ignite the vision of your future. You carry the burden because you're built for it. They watch the way your shoulders slump under unseen weight, convinced that your heart bears too much for your own good, that grief should have withered long ago instead of deepening with each passing season. You have known the ache of feeling as though you carry the sorrows of every ancestor and every friend who has ever entrusted their pain to your ears and your prayers. In the echo of late-night reflections, you questioned whether this burden was a cruel twist of fate, a punishment for caring too much, a flaw you needed to fix. Yet in the quiet depths of your soul, you sensed there was something far greater at work. The very heaviness that others mistook for weakness was the raw material your spirit would use to rebuild what generations before you could not restore. Your heart's capacity for sorrow is not a mistake, but a calling, a divine blueprint etched in your bones. There have been days when you stumbled through tasks, haunted by the weight of unspoken prayers and untold trauma that seemed to anchor your feet in heavy soil. You sat across from loved ones, sensing their hidden pain more deeply than your own, and wondered if this overflow of empathy was a gift or a curse. You remember the nights spent whispering ancestral names into the darkness, crying tears that felt as old as time, longing for the release of a generational curse you could neither name nor fully escape. The emotional toll was immense. The exhaustion of carrying burdens not originally yours, the isolation of experiencing depths of grief friends could never understand, and the piercing doubt that asked, "Why me? Why must I be the one to suffer so much?" In those moments, you stood at a crossroads of despair and destiny, unsure which path led to your deliverance. Then came the turning point when you uncovered in the overlooked pages of Nahum a revelation that reframed your suffering as sacred. You read, "He will make your paths level. You will go out in broad daylight, and your disgrace will be exposed." Nahum 1 verse 10. In that promise, you saw the purpose of your burden, to level the paths for your bloodline and to expose every hidden disgrace that generations before you had carried in silence. What felt like untamed heaviness was actually your divine anointing to break chains and scatter ashes of shame. You understood that just as God sweeps away filth with merciless justice, so your endurance would transform unspoken grief into fertile ground for healing. Your pain was never punitive. It was preparatory, a divine regimen designed to make you strong enough to stand in the gap for those who came before and those who will follow. As you embraced this truth, signs of transformation began to ripple through your life. You noticed grounds once scorched by sorrow sprouting shoots of newfound hope, an unexpected breakthrough in a stalled relationship, a gentle word at just the right moment that healed a friend's broken heart, an opportunity to share your story, turning into a beacon of comfort for strangers. Old dreams you thought had died started to revive, watered by the very tears you had shed. Conversations once draining now felt purposeful. Moments once heavy now held possibility. These were not coincidences, but divine confirmations that your burden was not dragging you down, but lifting you into the orbit of your destiny. Every step you took in faith aligned the terrain beneath your feet, making broad the path that once felt too steep to climb. Behind these visible shifts, you sense the presence of forces orchestrating your rise. Your struggles were not random tests of endurance, but elements in a grand divine design, each hardship calibrating your spirit for the work ahead. In the lesser-known prophecy of Zephaniah, you found solace in these words: "The Lord has laid bare his holy arm before the nations." Zephaniah 3 verse 8. You recognize that your bearing of unspoken sins and ancestral grief was part of God's plan to reveal his strength through your weakness. Every moment of endured sorrow became an opportunity for divine power to be displayed in your life, as if your very burden were the stage upon which God unmasked his glory. The more you carried, the more his holy arm was exposed, transforming your pain into a showcase of redemption. At this point, you understand that transformation is unfolding, but the final step demands full acceptance of your calling. Many resist this truth, fearing that embracing their burden means inviting perpetual sorrow or being defined by pain alone. They long to shed the heaviness without seeing the purpose within it. Yet true alignment requires you to not only recognize your burden, but to embrace it as your badge of honor, proof that you are chosen for this sacred work. This is a pivotal moment. Will you reject the weight and retreat into comfort? Or will you step forward and claim the strength born of endurance, knowing that in your arms lies the power to heal generations? Empowerment ignites when you make that choice. With every heartbeat, declare, "My burden is my calling. In my wounds, I find my mission." Release every doubt that whispers you are carrying too much, and instead forge practices that honor your role as restorer. Moments of prayer to lay down and pick up your burdens in divine partnership. Times of meditation to hear the guidance that emerges from your sorrow. Acts of service where you channel your empathy into tangible healing. Surround yourself with mentors and peers who understand the sacred nature of your weight, who stand as witnesses to your journey and as supporters of your mission. In doing so, you reinforce the truth that your strength is neither solitary nor self-generated, but anchored in divine purpose. Tonight, as you breathe deeply into the fullness of your calling, remember that the burdens you bear are not an indictment, but a credential. You carry in your chest the echoes of every unspoken prayer and every ancestral longing, and through your endurance, you are forging a new legacy of freedom and restoration. Comment burden if you accept your role as the one built to bear weight and to transform sorrow into abundant life. Let this declaration resonate through every fiber of your being. Your burden is your birthright, your strength is your service, and your destiny is the restoration of all that was broken. Step forward, chosen one, and watch the chains of past generations fall as you rise into the fullness of your divine assignment. Born different, spiritually designed, they marked you as an oddity before you even understood the depth of your own spirit, whispering that your daydreams were childish, that your visions were sunlit fantasies rather than warnings from the beyond. You learned early that your sensitivity to the unseen was a liability in conversations anchored to the mundane. When friends laughed off intuition as mere coincidence, you felt the sting of isolation, as though your very heart beat to a tempo no one else could hear. Yet you are not defective. You are finely tuned. Your solitude and sharp attunement to spiritual frequencies are divine features, etched into your soul before your very first breath. Tonight, you will see how every moment of feeling different was not destiny's mistake, but its masterstroke, preparing you for a mission few can perceive and even fewer can execute. Hold on to that sense of wonder, for the journey from outcast to oracle is about to unfold. There were days when you wondered if your life was a cosmic prank, when the world's reality seemed so solid and yours so fluid. You remember the bewilderment in classrooms, the frustration when instructions to think practically felt like shackles around your wings. You struggled to rationalize the depth of your empathy, the way you absorbed emotions like a sponge, or the nights you lay awake hearing echoes of prayers you didn't know were yours to answer. Every dismissal, every sideways glance, each attempt to fit into boxes built by others, inflicted a subtle wound, leaving you to question whether you were too much or simply misunderstood. The emotional weight was exhausting. The longing for acceptance battling the urgency of purpose, the ache of wanting to belong warring with the call to stand apart. In that tension lay the birthplace of profound purpose. Then came the revelation that reframed your difference as design. In the rarely cited scroll of Zephaniah, you discovered an invitation that resonated like thunder in your bones. Seek righteousness, seek humility. Perhaps you may be hidden on the day of the Lord's anger. Zephaniah 2 verse 3. This hiddenness, your sense of being apart, was never a curse, but a cloister where prophetic gifts could develop away from the clamor of disbelief. You recognized that divine separation refined your sensitivity, protected your vision, and cultivated humility before emergence. The very experiences that seemed to exile you were crafting a spiritual nerve center, a sanctuary where your gifts were honed and your resolve tempered. Suddenly, solitude felt less like abandonment and more like preparation, less like emptiness and more like incubation. As this truth settled in your soul, you noticed signs of transformation weaving through your life. Conversations that once felt like sandpaper against your spirit now became threads you could use to weave new understanding. Invitations to gatherings you dreaded seemed fewer, replaced by moments of meaningful connection with souls aligned to your frequency. Opportunities emerged, teaching moments, leadership roles, creative projects that tapped into your spiritual sensitivity instead of drowning it. You found yourself interpreting not only surface truths, but the unspoken needs of those around you, offering insights that moved hearts and opened doors. These shifts were not random blessings, but the unfolding of divine timing, aligning your external world with the inner sanctum where your gifts matured. Behind these visible awakenings, unseen forces were orchestrating your rise. Your challenges were never mere stumbling blocks, but divine signposts guiding you toward your true calling. In the lesser-known prophecy of Haggai, you discovered, "Work, for I am with you." Haggai 2 verse 4. Every moment of discomfort, every season of feeling apart, was a spiritual workshop where your hands learned to build in sync with divine intent. Synchronicities multiplied. Resources arrived when needed. Mentors crossed your path at pivotal moments, and your prayers unlocked doors you didn't know existed. This was not the randomness of fate, but the precise alignment of a sovereign hand weaving chaos into coherence, using your distinct design to advance a higher purpose. Now, you stand at the threshold of full embodiment, aware that transformation is unfolding in every area of your life, but understanding that true alignment requires full acceptance of your unique design. Many resist this call, trying to conform their calling to societal molds or dim the intensity of their gifts to avoid scrutiny. They fear that embracing difference means permanent exile or relentless misunderstanding. Yet divine alignment demands that you not only recognize your distinct wiring, but celebrate it as the blueprint for your impact. This is the sacred crossroads where hesitation must give way to bold acceptance, where you decide that standing apart is not a liability, but your greatest source of strength. Empowerment surges when you choose the path of wholehearted embrace. With every breath, declare, "I am divinely designed. My difference is my destiny." Release the fear that whispers you must shrink to be seen, and replace it with a proclamation of purpose. I stand apart so I can guide others to truth. Cultivate daily rituals honoring your unique rhythm. Moments of quiet reflection attuned to spiritual frequencies. Creative exercises that channel your sensitivity into innovation. And communal conversations that welcome the depth you bring. Surround yourself with fellow travelers who affirm your design and amplify your gifts. In this fellowship, your difference becomes the spark that ignites collective awakening. Tonight, as you sit with the echo of your own heartbeat, remember that being born different is not a random accident, but a strategic appointment. Your solitude has been a sanctifying cloister, your sensitivity a compass for hidden needs, and your distinct voice the instrument through which divine purpose flows. Comment different if you accept your divine design. Let this declaration resonate deep within. You were crafted to stand apart, to pierce illusions, and to rebuild foundations. The world's future pivots on your willingness to rise in the fullness of who you were always meant to be, the healer of hidden wounds. They watched you wince at laughter that cut too close, assuming your tears were signs of weakness or dramatic excess. Friends and family couldn't understand why your grief ran deeper than circumstance, why the sorrow you carried seeped into your dreams and tangled with your waking thoughts. You felt the sting of silence when you tried to speak of pain too ancient to name, the polite nods that muffled empathy into awkward pity. But your suffering was never about self-pity. It was the sacred preparation you needed to confront the hidden traumas woven into your bloodline. In the lesser-known prophecy of Joel you read, "And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh." Joel 2 verse 28. This pouring out begins not in comfort, but in brokenness. Your tears the cracks in hardened stone, each sorrowful drop softening ancestral grief. Tonight, you will step into the calling that turns your wounds into windows of healing for generations to come. As you look back on your journey, you recall moments when your chest ached at random reminders. A childhood photograph, a family gathering, the echo of a lullaby you never heard. You tried to push these pangs aside, chalking them up to overactive imagination or a melodramatic temperament. You kept your head down, afraid that any vulnerability would brand you unfit for leadership. In personal relationships, you guarded your heart, fearing that exposing your depth of feeling would drive people away. The emotional weight of unhealed lineage weighed on you like an anchor, dragging you into currents of doubt and loneliness. You felt trapped between the urge to hide your pain and the desperation to find someone who could truly see you, creating an inner conflict as exhausting as it was isolating. Your breakthrough came when you recognized that your struggle was a divine appointment rather than a flaw to fix. In the Little Reed prophecy of Obadiah, you discovered these words: "As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your dealings shall return on your own head." Obadiah 1 verse 15. Suddenly, what you'd taken as self-inflicted wounds revealed themselves as reflections of generational wounds passed down through silence and shame. Your sensitivity to pain was a gift, allowing you to mirror hidden traumas so they could be exposed to healing light. You realized that every pang you endured was part of a spiritual inheritance you were meant to transmute. The burdens you bore were tokens of purpose, invitations to become the conduit through which divine restoration flows. Once this truth settled into your spirit, you began to notice unmistakable signs of transformation. The nightmares that once fed on fear gave way to dreams of clarity, visions of fractured families mending, of broken hearts finding rhythm again. Conversations that felt stilted and apologetic shifted to dialogues of depth and authenticity, as though your willingness to name pain gave others permission to share their own. Doors you thought had slammed shut creaked open for moments of profound reconciliation, an unexpected apology from a distant relative, a long-avoided reconciliation with a childhood friend, tears shed and forgiveness offered in places you once feared to tread. Like the slow thaw of winter into spring, each thawing moment revealed new life beneath frozen soil, a testament to the power of naming and claiming your role as healer. Behind these emerging signs lay the quiet orchestration of divine intervention. Every moment of despair you survived was not a random trial, but a stepping stone toward elevation. In the obscure prophecy of Haggai you found, "Take courage, all you people of the land, and work, for I am with you." Haggai 2 verse 4. Your anointing as healer was not a mere title, but a collaborative work between your soul's willingness and a presence that never abandoned you. Synchronistic meetings echoed this truth. Therapists who understood the language of ancestral trauma, books that landed in your lap offering strategies for lineage healing, and prophetic words whispered in unlikely settings affirming that your pain had purpose. Each of these interventions carried the imprint of divine alignment, guiding you out of confusion and into clarity. Now, at this sacred juncture, you realize that understanding your transformation is not enough. You must fully accept and embody your calling. Many resist this step, fearing that naming themselves as healers will tether them to perpetual sorrow or bind them to the burdens of others. They cling to the comfort of anonymity, shy away from leadership, or doubt their worthiness. Yet true alignment demands wholehearted embrace of your role. This is a pivotal moment where hesitation can silence your impact or bold acceptance can unleash a wave of healing powerful enough to reshape your family line and beyond. Will you step fully into the mantle of healer or retreat into the safety of unclaimed potential? Empowerment surges when you choose to embrace your calling. With each breath, speak the declaration, "My wounds are the gateway to healing for others. My pain is the proof of my purpose." Release every last ounce of doubt that suggests you lack the strength for this work, and instead adopt practices that honor your role. Daily rituals of reflection, prayer circles dedicated to ancestral release, and deliberate acts of compassion that transform your empathy into action. Seek out communities that understand the journey of lineage healing, tribes of kindred spirits who share your vision and strengthen your resolve. In these alliances, your calling becomes not a lonely burden, but a shared mission to pour out the Spirit's restorative oil. Tonight, as you stand on the threshold of your destiny, remember that your hidden wounds were never meant to remain in darkness. Each tear you've shed, every echo of ancestral sorrow, has readied you to shine the light of healing into crevices where pain once thrived. Come and healer if you accept your calling to mend the invisible and free souls bound by secret grief. Let this declaration echo in your soul. You are the divinely appointed healer of hidden wounds, and through your courage to name and carry pain, you activate a legacy of restoration that will echo through generations. Step boldly into your role. Your time to heal has come. Spiritual gifts unlocked by battle. They have watched you stagger under burdens that seemed far too heavy, whispering that you were unfit for any real purpose because you could barely stand. But what they saw as weakness was actually the fires of refinement, where every hardship sharpened your discernment and honed your intercession. You remember nights alone in flickering candlelight, praying into the dark and feeling your own faith grow teeth capable of tearing down lies and devouring despair. When friends told you to give up, your spirit refused to yield, sensing that every trial was a divine workshop, molding you into a vessel equipped for more than mere survival. Tonight, you will discover how your battles were never random obstacles, but the very crucible where your spiritual gifts were unlocked. Gifts destined not for show, but for seismic transformation across realms of darkness and deception. The struggle felt endless, each setback echoing past failures until you began to doubt the worth of your own persistence. In the quiet of your doubts, You asked, "Why must I suffer again? Why does every step forward seem followed by 2 steps back?" You've known the ache of unanswered prayers, the humiliation of mistakes laid bare, and the tension of standing firm in your calling while surrounded by skeptics. Yet these experiences were not signs of divine abandonment, but invitations to discover the power that arises in barrenness. Behind closed doors, you bore the weight of others' expectations and the cold sting of isolation when you prioritized faith over fitting in. Through confusion and rejection, you sense there must be a purpose behind each burden, even if its meaning remained concealed in the shadows of your journey. Then came the moment when a flicker of revelation pierced through the gloom, an understanding that your hardships were tactical, not punitive. In the overlooked prophecy of Habakkuk you read, "Though the fig tree should not blossom, neither shall fruit be on the vines, yet I will rejoice in the Lord." Habakkuk 3 verse 17. This declaration was not an idle platitude, but a roadmap. Even in seasons of barrenness, your intuition blooms, your prayers crack the hardest ground, and your insight pierces the darkest schemes. You realized that every unfruitful season was preparing you for a harvest beyond imagination, each trial calibrating your spiritual senses for tasks others could not perform. In that turning point, you shifted from seeing hardship as a punishment to embracing it as the forge where your gifts were annealed. Tonight, as you feel the ember of truth glowing within, remember that your spiritual gifts were unlocked by battle and sealed by divine purpose. Comment "gifts" if you own the power forged in your trials. Let this declaration echo through your life. You are not defined by pain, but by the gifts it awakened. And now you carry a mantle of transformation no one can steal. Step forward, chosen one, and unleash the seismic shift your world has been waiting for. Restoration is your legacy. They have watched your every effort and dismissed it as insignificant, failing to appreciate that true restoration never arrives in a single sweep, but unfolds in the careful stitches of time. You have felt the impatience of those who expect quick fixes, friends urging you to let go of old hurts before your spirit is ready, mentors pressing you to move on before the soil of your soul has been tended. Yet you know that rebuilding a lineage wounded by generations of silence and sorrow demands patience, precision, and unwavering faith. Each moment you've spent revisiting painful memories, each tear you've shed in prayer, each courageous conversation to break cycles of dysfunction has laid the groundwork for a renovation far greater than what casual observers could imagine. Tonight, you will see how the slow, rhythmic work of restoration you perform is not only necessary, but sacred, preparing the soil for a harvest of generational blessings. You are not alone in this mission. Countless ancestors whisper their hopes through your perseverance, and generations yet unborn await the fruit of your labor. In the deepest chambers of your heart, you have wrestled with exhaustion and doubt, wondering if your repeated efforts to forgive, to set boundaries, and to heal were in vain. You remember standing at family reunions, watching old patterns replay like broken records, your prayers rising to heaven as you pleaded for a breakthrough that never came overnight. You felt the weight of ancestral expectations and the sting of skepticism when you shared your vision of healing a bloodline's deep wounds. The world around you seemed to move on, unconcerned with the silent prayers of mothers who never saw justice in their lifetime, or fathers who carried regrets like hidden scars. These moments left you feeling isolated and frustrated, as though every step forward required scaling walls built by decades of pain. Yet in those struggles, you sensed a deeper tug of destiny, a promise that your labor, though unseen, was aligning with a purpose far greater than immediate relief. You didn't just inherit your family name. You inherited their healing mission. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul." Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all supporting members for standing firm in this wave of restoration. Remember, heaven has orchestrated your arrival to restore what was broken. Rise up, chosen one, and rewrite your bloodline's destiny.